Hello everyone, welcome back. It's Forecast, and today's video I'm going to go for the Premier League roundup for Gameweek 23. I won't be including Everton at home to Leeds in this roundup because the game hasn't happened yet, but there will be a full review for that game available on the YouTube channel as well after this is uploaded. But anyway, let's start off with the sides that are involved in the title race this weekend, starting off with Manchester City at home to Wolves. And the big significant news from this game is Haaland didn't start, but it didn't matter. Marmoush scored the opening goal for Manchester City in this game. A great cross by Matheus Nunes to give Manchester City a 1-0 lead in a game that you'd expect them to win. Then there was some shouts for a penalty against Mosquera, but it wasn't given. Marmoush was certain that he had won a penalty. It was decided that the handball was too close proximity. I personally think that is a penalty and they should have overturned it. And when the referee went over to the monitor, he should have overturned his decision, but he decided not to. It's very rare that actually happens. But I'm just on the opinion of just scrap VAR altogether. Let's just get rid of this controversy because it's so frustrating to discuss. But City did find the second goal through Antoine Semenyo, a brilliant goal off his left foot. And it was a good pass from Bernardo Silva into him quickly. Semenyo then hit the crossbar in the second half off his left foot. It's just proving that he's such a two-footed player is Antoine Semenyo. He was very unlucky not to score from that shot. And Wolves went up the other end. They had a bit of a chance at the end, but it was a couple of great blocks by O'Reilly and Mark Gahey. And overall, City played well in this game. They played well enough to get an important 3 points for them. Gahey was excellent, I thought, in his first game for Manchester City. Looking at the table, City are still second place in the Premier League after this result, but crucially they finally found a way to win a Premier League game. Up to this game, they'd failed to win in their last four and lost the Manchester Derby and away to Bodo Glimt in the Champions League. So it was just crucial for City that they won this game. Also, there were no injuries for City throughout, and he was able to give Haaland a rest was Pep Guardiola. For Wolves, they are 20th place in the Premier League still. I still don't think there's any chance of them staying up, but that does end their unbeaten 2026 so far. They're unbeaten in 4 going into this game, but they've just lost to Manchester City. So then we had the next game involved in the title race, and that was Newcastle at home to Aston Villa. I have already discussed this game in full, but I will just quickly go through my thoughts on this game. And both sides had some major injuries going into this game in their midfield. Newcastle were having Bruno G out. For Villa, they had John McGinn out, and they also had Kamara out, who's out for the season. And it was a great game to watch. High intensity, high pressing, and a great atmosphere from both sides in St James's Park. And there were challenges flying in this game. Tonali had a massive chance to put Newcastle 1-0 up, but he failed to do so. And after that, I thought Villa were the more dangerous side. It was a great goal from Bundia from outside the box to give Villa the 1-0 lead. In my opinion, Newcastle need to be way quicker to close down Emi Bundia. We've seen him do this finish all season. Despite me saying Villa, I thought were the better side in that first half, Newcastle did have a good chance through Lewis Miley, but it was a good save by Emi Martinez, who played really well in this game. Where I think Villa actually won this game was that midfield. I thought Onana and Tielemans were outstanding in that midfield, especially defensively. And in the second half, Newcastle started to look like the more dominant side. They dominated the first 20 minutes of the game, but Villa were also letting them do this. Villa wanted to expose Newcastle United on the counter-attack, and Newcastle weren't the best side at breaking down low blocks. And one of the biggest mistakes I thought Howe made in this game was bringing on Anthony Elanga in this sort of game. This never suited a player like Elanga. You need someone that was more creative, but unfortunately Newcastle don't really have those players, and I think that's where they mucked up in the summer, was not signing more creative minded players, and Elanga just didn't offer anything for this game. And overall, I thought Emery absolutely outclassed Eddie Howe, and it was a masterclass in how Emery wins games of football, especially away from home. And Villa did find that second goal, and it was a great cross from Digne into the back post, and Watkins was unmarked to head the ball into the back of the net to get a massive 3 points for Aston Villa. And now looking at the table, Villa are still third place in the Premier League, and Newcastle United are 9th place. They are 5 points off the top 4, and the reason they're 5 points off the top 4 is because Manchester United are in 4th place, and that is because they won against Arsenal away from home. an unbelievable result for Manchester United and 2 back-to-back amazing wins in the Manchester Derby and then against Arsenal. And in the first 25 minutes, Arsenal were actually in control of this game. They were dominant and they were rewarded with a goal. It's poor from Lisandro Martinez. He has to get out and clear that ball, but he's too busy. It's thinking about Jurrien Timber and the threat of Timber in the box. And this is where the game actually changes, and not for the better for Arsenal. This is when Arteta decided to sit back and protect the lead. And to be honest, Arteta was an absolute coward and he didn't learn from his mistake in the past. He's done this in other games and it's cost him in previous seasons. But when Arsenal actually go for it, for example, Villa this season, City last year, they actually look like a really good side and they could have dominated Man United in this game, but they sat in and they allowed United to start having some chances and get themselves back into the game, because I didn't see any way back for United in this game if they kept dominating the game like they were. And United eventually equalised through Brian Mbeumo. It's a big mistake from Zubimendi, and the passing and the individual errors for Arsenal today was also the big problem in today's game. And after half-time, United were the better side and they were rewarded with a Dorgu goal, a brilliant finish off his left foot from outside the box. He catches that shot so well. And Arsenal did manage to find the equaliser from a corner through Mika Marino. It's an absolute scrap in there. It's a very Arsenal goal. And as I've insisted, I have no problem with Arsenal winning through set pieces, but they've got to win the game, and they failed to do that, and they failed to get anything from this game, because Cunha went up the other end and won it for United. A cracking strike off his right foot, and Cunha was excellent for Manchester United when he came on the pitch. I think he should have started, but you can't really get annoyed at Carrick for that decision because United went on to win the game. Arsenal, I thought in this game, looked absolutely terrified at the possibility of bottling the lead. That's what it felt like to me. They looked nervous, they looked shaky, and this isn't the first time this has happened this season. Against Wolves at home, I saw this exact same sort of feeling from Arsenal. They did manage to get the goal in that game, and that was in December, and this is in January, and they're feeling the pressure like this. Arsenal shouldn't be feeling this pressure until March and April. That's when it should start to be nervy. It's way too nervy and way too early. And I think that's because Arteta is reluctant to let Arsenal just play on the front foot for the majority of the game, which they failed to do today. So what does that do to the table? Well, Arsenal are still top of the league, but they're only 4 points clear now of City and Aston Villa. And right now, if one of those sides goes on a run, they 100% win the league. I don't see either side doing it yet, and I still think that Arsenal will win this league. They may limp over the line, but they'll still do enough to do it. And as long as they win the league, does it really matter? Looking at Manchester United, as I said, they are into 4th place and they're unbeaten in 5 on the form. For Carrick, that's a massive 3 points for him at Manchester United, and maybe he could be the future United manager. For me, I would still need more evidence to suggest that he should be the manager, especially against those sides like your Evertons, your Burnleys, your Leeds, that the United have struggled constantly against so far this season. If I see them perform well against them, well then I may be more swayed. Even so, I will still have some doubts about Carrick being the United manager, because better managers have failed at Manchester United. So then we're on to the next game, and once again I did do a full review for this game, and it was between Liverpool and Bournemouth. And in the first 25 minutes, I actually thought Liverpool were decent. They weren't too bad in this game, but from then, Liverpool absolutely collapsed. And there are 3 words to describe this Liverpool performance, which I discussed in the full review. Liverpool were fragile, they were complacent, and they were vulnerable. And all 3 of those mixed together results in a terrible performance. Van Dijk was shocking on that first goal, way too relaxed. He just has to get the ball out, and I can't understand what he's trying to do in that situation. And it's simple goal for Evan Nielsen after Alex Scott squared it to him. And the next thing that happens is inexcusable. You just have to take out one of those Bournemouth players when Joe Gomez is off the pitch and you're down to 10 men, so you can get the substitution on. But they failed to do this, and Alex Jimenez scores. Kirkies has to be doing better defensively, but it's also Van Dijk's fault once again. Van Dijk is playing on Alex Jimenez. Van Dijk then scores at the other end just before half-time, and he was involved with everything good and bad in that first half. And once again, it was a very similar to the first 20 minutes. Liverpool dominated, Bournemouth sat in a low block, trying to hold out for that 2-1 win. Then Dominic Szoboszlai equalises for Liverpool from the free kick. Salah backheeled it to him. It's an excellent goal by Dominic Szoboszlai. Once again, Liverpool's best player by a country mile. And from there, we saw how vulnerable Liverpool are as a side. and Christie just has the freedom of Vitality Stadium on the counter attack, and he played the ball into Evan Nielsen, but he missed the shot. And from there, you're like, Liverpool are very lucky here to get away with this, and maybe there's a chance they go up the other end and score, and there were chances. But as we've seen all season, Liverpool are so fragile, and they can see from a long throw in the last moments, and Adley wins the game for Bournemouth. So what does this mean for Liverpool? Well, that was a shambolic performance. That is now 5 games without a win. Liverpool currently lie 6th place in the Premier League, and they are 2 points behind Manchester United in 4th. For Bournemouth are in 13th place in the Premier League. For the future of slots, I'm going to be discussing this in another video where I discuss every manager's sort of future at each club. But right now, I think the best thing Liverpool could do is probably keep him for the end of the season and then sack him most likely if the form continues like this. I don't think there's much point bringing a new manager. The only one you'd probably look to bring in is Xabi Alonso, but Liverpool don't have centre-halves to bring in a manager like that, because if Alonso's coming in, then you'd probably want him to play his best formation, which is the 5 at the back, and Liverpool don't have the players to play a 5 at the back right now in centre-half. As well as this, I just think it's better to have a clean slate for the start of the season for Alonso, where he can have a summer transfer window. So then we're on to a bit of a mid-table clash between Fulham and Brighton. Two sides that have been alright so far this season, but have been inconsistent, especially Brighton. But it was a good strike from Ayari to give Brighton the lead in this game. I think Leno should be doing better with that. It's a powerful strike by Ayari, but the angle of that shot, it shouldn't be beating Leno at his near post. And then Brighton have a massive chance to double their lead through Matoma. He just needs to square it to Gomez, the other Brighton winger, but he doesn't do this. He can't get his head up, and Fulham did survive that attack. Brighton deserved to be up at half-time based on the chances they had created, but Fulham did find the equaliser, and it's through a brilliant long pass by Anderson into Chukwueze and a good finish to get Fulham back into the game. And that is why Anderson is such a useful player, because of his long-range passing. He's able to create a goal from centre-half out of absolutely nothing. And from there, Welbeck then had the ball in the back of the net for Brighton. It was a great ball by Matoma, but he was just offside. And Welbeck had another chance through a header, and really he should be putting this into the back of the net, either side of Leno, and the ball goes into the back of the net, but he puts it straight at Leno. It's still a decent save from Leno, but it should have been more challenging. Then the cult hero of Fulham right now, Harry Wilson, finds a last-minute winner for Fulham. A good free kick. Should Verbruggen save it? Yes, he gets a great hand to this, but he fails to prevent it from going in to the back of the net, and that's a great 3 points for Fulham. In terms of some individual performances, Robinson and Sanderberg were poor for Fulham in this game, despite Fulham picking up the 3 points. I guess some positives for Brighton is that Van Hecke and Belieber played well in today's game. Two players that are likely to leave Brighton in the summer. So what does this mean for the table? Well, Brighton are now 12th place in the Premier League. I think they're underperforming. I think they should be in the top half this season. It is very congested, and I think they would have expected, considering they've got no European football, to be in the top half this season. And Brighton are just so inconsistent, and they have to start converting some of those draws into wins. Otherwise, Brighton will just remain around the mid-table side for the rest of the season, which is what I expect will happen. For Fulham, they are 7th place in the Premier League now. They're having a really good season. That wasn't the most convincing performance. They were pretty lucky to win that game, but they won't care. In their recent form, they've had a couple of draws, a couple of wins, and a loss, and they're playing well right now. They're a very difficult side to beat, especially at home. So then we're on to Palace at home to Chelsea. A good 3 points in this game for Chelsea. Mateta had a massive chance though early in this game for Crystal Palace, but he missed the chance. It was a good save from Sanchez, but Mateta has to score that. And I just wonder right now, is it a confidence thing, or is he struggling with an injury and he's playing through injury right now? Because Palace have such a lack of depth in their side. Sarr had another good chance for Crystal Palace, and overall they'll probably be disappointed they didn't take the lead in this game. Chelsea dominated the ball, but it was Chelsea that went 1-0 up in this game, and it's a poor mistake from JD Convert. He has to be doing better. I know he's an inexperienced centre-half, he's very young, but it's a poor back pass, and it results in Aston Villa picking up the ball. He uses his pace on the break to get away from Mitchell, and then it's a brilliant finish past Henderson to put Chelsea 1-0 up. And that's the talent of Estevao. He was the best player on the pitch in today's game. He has to start more consistently than he is right now. Estevao had another chance for Chelsea, but he couldn't put the ball into the back of the net. In fairness to him, it was off his right foot, and it was actually really good work to get into that position. Once again, Chelsea exploiting the space in behind that Crystal Palace had left. Chelsea had some more chances on the counter-attack, and eventually they did go 2-0 up in this game. It's a great ball by Estevao into João Pedro, and it's a good finish pass Dean Henderson, and João Pedro was also involved in the build-up for this counter-attack. Once again, Chelsea hitting Palace on the counter-attack. Jadon Convolt is once again at fault for this goal. He's too deep defensively, and it means Pedro isn't offside when he goes through on goal. Chelsea are then awarded a penalty. I thought it was one of those penalties where they would just go with the on-field decision, but they didn't decide to. And Enzo Fernandez dispatched the penalty past Dean Henderson. He was very good today, as well as his midfield partner in Andre Santos. Then Wharton picked up a second yellow card. He'll be frustrated by this. It was very much a challenge of frustration, and both yellow cards were 5 minutes apart. Frustrating for Glasgow considering the lack of depth that Palace currently have. And Palace did actually somewhat look better with 10 men actually. And Chris Richards actually scored from a corner. It was an absolute mess. Sanchez actually made a really good initial save, and he was rightfully frustrated by the fact that he wasn't able to keep his clean sheet. So what does this mean for both sides? Chelsea are 5th place now in the Premier League. Their goal will be to finish in the Champions League place by the end of the season. For Crystal Palace, I'm actually a bit worried about Palace getting dragged into a relegation battle here. They're currently on 28 points, and they are 8 points clear of West Ham. But why I'm worried is the fact they've still got European competition to deal with. And I think Oliver Glasner is basically checked out for the season. And this is resulting in Palace not performing anywhere near that they should be. They're very tired, and there's a lot of problems right now at Palace. And I wouldn't be surprised if Palace get dragged into this relegation battle. It's going to be interesting to see if they do. All they do need, though, is just a run of form to get themselves away from it. If they pick up a couple of wins in a row, then we won't be talking about this in a couple of weeks. But right now, I don't know if I can see this happening. And I think there's a big decision to make around Oliver Glasner and if they should keep him for the rest of the season, or is he now having a negative effect on the Palace? So then we've got Burnley at home to Spurs, and I think some people would have argued this was a bit of a relegation scrap game going into it. Spurs needed a win, and I actually thought they were quite good in the first half. Burnley did score in this first half, but it was offside. Lucas Perez scored that goal. There was a massive chance for Gallagher from the corner, but Spurs did go 1-0 up through a corner as usual, and of course through a centre-half. The centre-half this time being Mickey van der Ven. A brilliant finish off his left foot, and it's no surprise the fact that a centre-half is scoring for Spurs. They can't find goals for their front line, but they continue to bail them out. And honestly, Thomas Frank after this went so negative trying to hold a lead away at Burnley. Spurs just need to go into that game and look to dominate the game, and they should have won that game easily. But no, he decides to sit in and invite pressure, and this is why he needs to go, because the mentality of the manager isn't good enough, and they're one of the worst sides to watch in the league. He still thinks he's coaching a side like Brentford. Spurs have way bigger expectations than this. And Spurs' side doesn't suit sitting in a low block. It's that simple. They don't actually have the players to do this. They're better off playing a higher line. They're better off being an attacking side. This is what the fans want. This is what the players want. And Frank continues to not do this. And this results in Burnley equalising through to Wanzebe. A great cross by Kyle Walker. Poor marking in the box. They have to be doing better than that do Spurs. Solanke then had a big chance to make it 2-1 Spurs, but he missed it. And then Lyle Foster put Burnley 2-1 up. It's an absolute mess of a goal. It's poor defending from Spurs. It is, though, great work by Jadon Anthony to initially create the chance. Lyle Foster has one go at it. It was saved by Vicario, but then he puts the rebound in to make it 2-1 Burnley. And after this, Spurs actually decide to apply some pressure because they're 2-1 down. And I just hate managers like that. I'm just like, why couldn't you do that for more of the game? Why couldn't you look to go out and dominate this game? Why do you have to be so scared against Burnley of all teams? And Spurs did manage to find this equaliser, and of course it comes through Christian Romero, once again getting Thomas Frank out of trouble. I mean, not that much trouble, the fans clearly still want him out, but it got him a point away at Burnley. It's a great diving header, and it's a brilliant cross from Odobert. I thought Odobert was very good for Spurs in today's game, but there's still no excuse. You can't be performing like that against Burnley. Romero and Van der Ven have combined scored 13 goals so far this season. They're the second and third highest scorers for Spurs so far. That is absolutely ridiculous, and that is why Spurs are currently in 14th place in the Premier League. They are 8 points away from the relegation zone, but similar to Crystal Palace, if they don't turn this around, they could definitely get themselves dragged into this. For Burnley, I think Burnley are pretty much down. They are 10 points away from safety. They needed to win this game, but they lost it in the final moments of the game. So then we're on to the next game, which was between West Ham and Sunderland. A massive game for West Ham and a great result for West Ham. And I definitely think Sunderland were affected by the absence of Granit Xhaka, but it is a great ball by Jarrod Bowen and a great header by Somerville to put West Ham 1-0 up. It is so important that he is in form going into the final parts of the season for West Ham, because when he's in form, he's a very good player. When he's out of form, he's not a great player at all. Then Trey Hume gave away the penalty up against Scales, which Bowen converted to put West Ham 2-0 up in this game. Roos did get close to this penalty, and then Mateus Fernandes with an absolutely brilliant strike from outside the box, the best player on the pitch today, to put West Ham 3-0 up at half-time. And those West Ham fans in the ground must have been an absolute dreamland. They probably couldn't believe what they'd just seen. The fact they were 3-0 up in half-time. Sunderland did manage to get a consolation goal in this game. It was actually a great cross by Mukiele into Brobby, and it was a good header into the back of net from Brobby. And Sunderland did actually create quite a few chances after. Todibo and Mavropanos I thought were excellent for West Ham in today's game. Fernandes nearly scored the same goal again from the corner. That would have been two of the best goals I've seen in a long time in the same game. The ball didn't quite cross the line. Then Souček actually nudged Roos and it almost did cross the line. But something you may have noticed in the replay is when Mateus Fernandes struck that ball, Mavropanos and Alderente were just going head to head on the goal line arguing. And it was absolutely hilarious. Neither of the players just seemed to care about the fact that the game was going on. So then what does this mean for the two sides? Well, Sunderland are doing well in the Premier League right now. They are currently in 10th place. They are still at 13 points clear of the relegation zone. There shouldn't be any worries about that for the rest of the season. It's more about could they finish in a European position. I still think they definitely could. They're level on points with Newcastle and Brentford, who are in 9th and 8th place, and they're only 1 point behind Fulham. In terms of West Ham are still 5 points behind Forest, who are above them in 17th place and 5 points off staying up. And the reason why they didn't manage to reduce the gap is because Forest managed to get a great away win at Brentford. This must have really frustrated West Ham, because West Ham probably would have felt like Brentford would have won that game. And honestly, they probably should have. Brentford had some big chances in this game, but the key thing about this game was the early goal for Forest through Igor Jesus. It's a good delivery into the box from Ole Aina, but it's the work from Igor Jesus. Flicks it off his shoulder, and then a brilliant volley into the back of the net. Callaghan, no chance. One of the best goals of the weekend. And after this, Brentford had so many chances through Otara, through Thiago, but they couldn't take those chances. There was a couple of chances from a long throw. But it was actually Forest who found the second goal through Taiwo Awoniyi. A great piece of work, actually. It's just a punt up to him up the pitch. And then it's a good finish from him off his right foot to beat Callaghan in net for Brentford. Completely against the runner play, and this is late on in the second half, and this is one of the first times where Forest actually got anywhere near the Brentford goal, and it was an absolute Sean Dyche masterclass. Brentford had a couple more chances through set pieces. Otara really should have scored for a set piece. It was a good delivery from Janssen, but I thought overall the Forest defence did really well in today's game. Specifically, Murillo and Milinkovic, the two centre-halves. Nico Williams is actually really good as well. Aina not so good, but he also got the assist for the Igor Jesus goal. and Anderson and Sagare were also great for Forest in this game, as well as Sales. Those 7 players were so important for why Forest managed to get the results in today's game, as well as Igor Jesus and Awonyi being so clinical in front of goal. And so what does this mean for Nottingham Forest? As I said, they are still 5 points clear of the relegation zone. But with how West Ham are starting to sort of turn it around, they're going to have to keep winning like this. For Brentford are in 8th place. They're still in a chance of European football, and they're actually only 5 points away from the top 4. I don't see them doing this, but maybe they could finish in European football. Let me know your thoughts on these Premier League games, and if you enjoy this video, go subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as liking the video.